All right, so what I'm going to do to tip this off is I want to just kind of set the stage for what we're going to look at. So basically, we're going to focus mostly on the Avoka Mobile FieldWorker application, which is a native application, as Rod was kind of talking about. You can get that out at the iTunes App Store or the Google Play Store, and that has all the heavy lifting that you would normally have to build into your application, already kind of baked into it, and then it's going to work in synergy with the Avoka Transact platform. So really kind of removing that barrier, kind of what Rod was talking about, kind of making it simple to do. So that's kind of the context of a lot of what we're going to look at today. And if we look at that and how that fits into the Avoka Transact, actually above that red box, last week's or 2 weeks ago webinar, we talked more about the online aspect and really focused on the web plugin and the self-service portal. But it's all working off of the same platform, right? So transaction manager is still managing the transactions both for a FieldWorker installation and a portal and web plugin all at the same time. And that composer aspect where you're tying your business closer to the data collection application, it's still the same, right? So that one transaction, that one form that they build, if you want to call it a smart form, as they deploy it out, that could both be in the field as well as on a website. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Many times there are separate things you want to do. In the FieldWorker case, you may want to have pictures taken, but if it's something that could be used in both, that form designer could put a rule that says I need an attachment, and on the FieldWorker side it's taking a camera, and on the web service self-service portal it's asking for you to upload the attachment, right? So you can still do one and the same. So again, that's kind of the focus of what we're going to look at, and that's how it fits into the platform as a whole. And again, we'll focus on some use cases with FieldWorker, and then we'll kind of back out and look at what it takes to build one of these, because that's really a big aspect to it. So with that, let's jump into the demo. And so what I'm going to do actually is share my screen. So this is actually just a screen. This is just a webcam looking down on my iPad here, and so you can see the native application here, and this is something that we've downloaded from the iTunes Store. I can launch it, and basically what it's going to do is allow me to log in. You can see in the upper right-hand corner, actually you can't see, I'll slide over. You can kind of see I'm in a connected mode, so it's connected to a server, and so the FieldWorker at the beginning of his day or beginning of his trip, he's going to do this kind of exercise to actually log in, synchronize, and pull down. And what we're doing when we do that is we're actually filling this forms bucket with all the forms that we're going to need and can use out in the field. So this is the equivalent of what our paper form is, in our briefcase today, right? And then I'm also going to have a task list. This is items that have actually been assigned to me by the organization for me to go out and fulfill, right? And so, and in this case, you can see I've got 3 items actually already assigned there. And then I've got history. And part of the history is going to be, if I'm out in the field, and as Rod kind of pointed out in the slides, in today's world, many times you do have connectivity. I've got 3G connectivity and all that, but many times you're doing inspections in a spot where the connection doesn't work, or it's going up and down and it's causing more grief. So you have to be able to go offline, and that's what this application is allowing us to do. So it's going to allow us to go completely disconnected, and if I'm disconnected when I fill out one of these applications and save it, it's actually going to store it locally on a secure database and then synchronize back up to the server, back to Transaction Manager once I'm reconnected. So that's kind of what we're going to look at here. So let's go in. We've synchronized up. Let's go in and take a look at our task list, and we can see 3 different items. Now again, I created an organization, if you will, over in Transaction Manager for the user ID that I logged in as, and basically set up a grouping that told me what forms I have access to, and then allowed also assignments to be made. So in this case, I've got a home visit. So this would be kind of a government worker. I've got a well inspection, so someone out in the field actually inspecting a gas well, and then an energy audit for a firm who's going to go out and put that in there. So I've got a variety of things. This normally wouldn't be in one user's kind of capability, but I created a hybrid user, if you will, and assigned that to them. So one of the things I'll do is let's open an item. I get a description that can be assigned by the, you can either be assigned by Transaction Manager, or it could be an API call from one of your existing systems to make this assignment. And I can easily go into the application and then also click Map and actually see where it is on the map, go back to it, and then I can go into the actual form itself, right? So, so as I'm getting ready for my day and picking out all the different places I've got to go, I can see it on the map. I can use items that could help me, navigate there based on the device if I've got that built into my device. And then once I'm out into the field, and in this case I'm going to do the assessment for, this particular person, I can actually go in. You can see I've already got information already filled out, so it's already there. You can also notice here this locate button. Now this is actually knowing where I'm at right now with the device, and where this is going to come into play, and it doesn't even have to be visible. You can basically record where that field worker is when they're filling in the form and when they were out there, so you can be sure that they're actually on site where they said they were. And then from the field worker perspective, if they want to toggle the map to actually see more detail, just like we saw over on the other map, I can actually drill down and actually see that's where it is. And so in this case we can say, yep, that's all good. I click next, and now I'm coming into the actual filling of the form. Now keep in mind too, we talked about this native application aspect. So if we look at the wrapper here, the Chrome of the application on the outer edges, that's really the field worker application, and then this blue area inside, this is really what came from Composer. So this is the business who derived the navigation pane here, what fields are in there. So they're in control of what information they want to be able to collect in the field and what's going to happen to it, as well as rules that go into it. So I can come in and start, seeing it was a referral, what time, were you there? The controls are going to pop up. We can say, well, we're there too. This is the owner, and how did they hear about us? I could ask them, and they say, well, I got a friend that referred me. And then I can start asking the questions that were set up there. Are you at home during the summer months? So this is going to apply to what we're going to recommend to them as part of this energy audit. Do they have plans around enhancing things? Now you'll notice there when I check this, if I uncheck it, that changed, right? So because I said I've got plans, later in the deal, or I can jump down to it, what are the plans, right? And so we can say, yeah, we've got them. We're going to do weatherization. We're going to do appliance recycles and a refrigerator replacement. So you can really come into dynamically building what that wants to be, and also reducing the training that's required for your field workers. So the form becomes an intuitive, natural part of their work, and it's not something they have to learn how to do. And as they answer certain things, required fields are built in, validations are built in, all those kind of things. The native controls you see for the type device, are there. So we could say this home was built in '89, type, gas leaks present. If I say yes, it could open up different pieces. You can also see picture of the front of the house. So in this case, I can say, let's take it, and you can see it's actually activating the camera controls. I'll rotate the camera, so now we're looking up at my webcam. Take a picture of that. And you can see that embeds that in there. Now that also is putting it as an attachment, and it doesn't stop me from coming in as part of the application and attaching additional pieces. So maybe I want to come in and attach either an image or a video. So we'll say we're going to do another image, and it's going to open the camera controls up for us there. And then each one of those can be tagged. You can define what is the type of pictures that I'm going to allow into the form, right? So you not only what types, but are they required or not required, and things like that. So you really get to control, what it is you're looking for. And then as we go through and kind of, if we say other, you can see, well, then it's pulling out. All right, well, I want to know, what it is and how old it is, right? But if I say, we don't have any, well, then I don't ask that question. So you start seeing the whole intelligence factor built into the form. So you're really removing the training requirement around it. We'll go through some of these pieces. Some of it's just basic data collection, but here you'll notice another area that you might run into is, how many refrigerators do they have on site, and so you can kind of set the year, the make, model, and add as many as you want, and you can see that kind of capability anywhere in the form if you have multiple row type needs. And again, that's no programming to kind of make that work in there. And again, just makes it real intuitive for the data collection piece. Right, and so you could come through and say, here's all the different pieces as they're setting plans up. You could, we covered that already. And then you could even come in down to the signature aspects of it. And so now I could come in and say, I, the contractor who just went through, did that, I could come in and actually sign it, hand the device, turn the device over, let the customer come in and he could sign it, customer, and put his signature in there, and now we've got it. We both kind of agree to it. If I come in and hit submit now, the application is going to basically tell me that no further changes can be made. Now, had there been, now as we were going through it, validations were happening, but if there were things that we had missed, maybe there was an attachment we needed or something we hadn't done yet, that's going to tell me right here, right? So it's going to stop the submission before I put in there. In this case, it's telling me it's all good, the signatures are applied, and I can go ahead and hit submit. And if I hit submit, what's going to happen there, if I actually hit it, it's going to actually synchronize back up. So it's going to store into the local secure database first, and then it's going to synchronize back up. Now, as you remember, we were already connected, and so you can see it starts the synchronization automatically. So it's an automatic type aspect that's going to happen. So one of the benefits from doing that is we're going to immediately, if there's something that needs to be done, if there was some information in there that needed to be acted on quickly, then I'm going to act on it as quickly as possible. So in this case, an energy audit, maybe there's an opportunity to sell someone some additional services, and we can act on that quickly. If it's an inspection of a home, and I find a problem, we could fix the problem quicker and not have the renters sue us and things like that. So there's a lot of benefits to doing that and getting that information quickly. So that's kind of a one use case, and we kind of bounce through that pretty quickly. Let's go in and look at a couple other use cases real quick. So I'm going to click back on our task list. One thing we might do is actually use in the case of like a government caseworker who's going out to visit. Again, you can see the address of where they're going to go. I could click map to go to that. And then I could click open and actually go to the data collection application that is being asked for me to do. So now we can come in and see the the child services screen. We can see the picture of the child. So this is actually pre-populated with a picture of the child, and so we know exactly what they look like. And as we're doing the inspection, and again, we're also recording where we're at when we're doing this. And so now if I come in and say, now we're going to take a fresh picture of the child, take picture, open up the controls, and I'll pick it up and take a picture of the child. So now we've got our child picture, we put it in, and now for the records back in the back on the server, we're going to have a fresh picture, for the date that we're doing this particular audit. And again, now we go through, we see the caregiver information, and again, what this really drives is depending on what you want to collect out in the field, you can control that application and do that really quickly. Same here, we see some tasks that were given to us to do for this particular visit. So these were as a result of the last visit where I'm supposed to check grades, get a copy of the report card. So I could actually take a picture of that, attach it with the attach tab, and then say, yep, I'm done with that piece. And then I could start going into my visit information. So I did it unannounced and all kinds of information around that. But again, it's very intuitive to use, so it's going to ask base questions, and then if I come in and answer them different ways, then it's going to ask additional questions, where if I answer it other ways, I'm not going to see that, right? And that could just continue to tree and tree, you know, as you go through. So multiple questions, and it could just keep building on itself depending on what you're saying. So a lot of all the intelligence and business rules that you want to put in place are there, which just makes it easier for the field worker. And it also increases the adoption rate for the field worker to want to get rid of their paper and use a tool like this, right? They see it as a huge advantage to themselves, right? Because they're getting items pre-populated. It's intuitive. They don't have to worry about filling it in wrong. And from the organization perspective, you're making sure that the data is clean as it's coming back in, right? So it's a win-win across the board. So again, I could follow all the way through, you know, this particular guy, submit the piece, or I could even come in and say, look, I'm going to save and exit. So we'll save where we're at. Maybe we're breaking for lunch with the kid. We're going to run, get something to eat. I can do that, and it'll just park it, and I can come back and complete it, you know, as we need. Similar aspect, but a little bit different look to the application would be this one that we did. So I'll open this up. So this is more of a change in role. So this would be someone actually going out into, you know, very remote areas. Definitely have to be offline to be able to do this. And you'll see the navigation on this guy changed a little bit. Across the top, you can see the menu. So I can, you know, just tab across that way. And again, we see pre-fill. As I'm filling it out up in the top right corner, I'm seeing, you know, who I'm filling it out for. But as I move through, this one, as I start inspecting the different sites or areas of the site, you'll see it's actually building the score for me as we're going through. So all the calculations and aspects like that are in there. So I've got a score. You know, I could say that's satisfactory, you know, satisfactory. And if I say unsatisfactory on any of these, it's going to say, okay, now you told me it's unsatisfactory, so I need you to describe it to me and take a picture, right? So again, you know, show me why that was unsatisfactory. And again, I'll pick the camera back up. I'll just take a picture of the webcam. But you can, you know, describe, this is what I saw, you know, put your notes about it, and then move on to the next piece. And again, I could move down there, or I could be, you know, navigating across the you know, the navigation pane, you know, at the top. And again, we could come in and get to the end as the inspector. I could sign it, or I could have the well manager, you know, whoever the required signatures could be, you know, I could put those in place, hit submit, and then it's going to tell me no further changes, and I could go ahead and submit in. So, you know, again, you can see really intuitive, easy to use. And again, we're looking at assignments there. If we go over to the forms, you know, we can see the different type of forms that we could be. It could be a sales, new setup. It could be medical record. We see a lot of this out in the field where you've got nurses traveling to particular, you know, homes and things like that, where, you know, they could come in for the patient, be able to come in and say, okay, we've got an issue with some of the medicines. What all are they taking? We could start going in and putting, you know, they did a change to this medication, what it is, and then they're also taking this medication and also taking this medication. Build that all into the form, and then sign it as the nurse, and then submit it in. And basically, as soon as it's back into the organization, there can be rules back up against the data that says, oh wait, if we see these two drugs conflicting, we know we've got an issue. Let's get someone alerted right away. So again, you're saving you know, potential risk to the organization by getting that quickly. So again, sales, health and home, government, finance, setting up applications out in the field for brokers and agents and things like that. There's just a wealth of areas that this could be used. Now, one of the things I want to kind of highlight real quick, let's jump over. So one of the things that we did was actually put a the work into, you know, we submitted our energy audit, and that actually gets routed to someone in the back field, in the back office, right? So we could actually go in and look at that particular item and see where it is and kind of what's going on with the workflow aspects of it as well, right? So that's another thing. So any of these forms that you're putting in, Transaction Manager is going to make sure that it is delivered and pushed to the right people at the right time. Now, one of the other aspects that I think is real important to this is the ability to actually build these applications. So we're going to change roles here a little bit. We're going to log into Composer, so now we're out of a field worker. We're kind of more of the business user defining one of these applications. Let's build one from start to finish, deploy it out to the app, and see how quickly we could do that. So what we're going to do is create a new form with Composer, which is a web-based tool. And we're going to call this Webinar FW for Field Worker. We could come in, choose a template. We could choose the structure, styling, and color theme that we're going to go with this. We're just going to take standard. And you'll see here include field worker support. We've got that checked, so we know we're going to be okay to make that work. I click Finish, and what Composer is really going to do for us here, based on the templates that are set up for the organization, it's going to drop the right logos in, the right color schemes that are approved, put it all in place, and then I could start building the application as the business, right? So I'm going to come in and drop a section assistant in here. So we're going to, for this demo, what we're going to do is get customer information. We're going to have address, and we'll have the inspection detail that we're going to look at, and then we want them to sign it. And so let's put that in the form, finish. And what we'll see is it drops those particulars in there. It already gave us an instructions. I'm not going to take the time to build instructions for field work. I'm just going to take that out. Now you can see here the structure is what's in the form. The middle aspect is what a wireframe rendition of what it may look like. And then over here is my palette of things that I can drag onto the form. And when I drag onto the form, I can drag directly to the wireframe, or I can drag to the hierarchy where I want this to be. So we're going to put name here, and for the address, let's come in and we'll grab a pre-built block. We'll drop that in place. These are reusable blocks that are at the organization level, and they're inherited. So any changes to it, I'm going to inherit the changes, so we can see that in there. Now let's put a yes/no question on our inspection. So we'll say, is area clean? And we'll drop that in place. And then we want them to be able to sign it. So we'll pull up, here we're going to sign on the glass, so we're going to give them the signature pad widget. We'll put that in place, and now we've got our form. So really this quickly, I could now start working with my business sponsor and say, okay, here's what the form's going to look like, right? And so I could preview this inside of the Composer application in PDF, in HTML for desktop, or HTML for mobile devices. So here I could look at, and they may say, you know what, I don't really like this blue. Is there any way we could keep this from scrolling? So we could come in and change the, on the fly really, and come in and say, okay, let's make this a wizard top tab, and we'll change the color scheme to be silver. So give ourselves a different color scheme. And again, real quickly, and even potentially real time with the business sponsor, we could do this, and then they could look at it and say, okay, yeah, this looks great. This is exactly what I want this to look like. Now they come in and say, okay, well, if someone says the area is not clean, I'd really like to get a picture of that. So can we do that real quick? And so what we would do there is, let's put a container in on the inspection side, and we'll say this is the not clean container. And a container is nothing more than just a box, if you will, to hold things, and I'm going to assign a rule to that. Now, one of the things we know we want to put is our picture aspect. So we can go down and look at our field worker. So we can see there's a field worker tab here in my palette, and I want to grab a thumbnail. So I'm going to drop the thumbnail in there, and we'll call this the not clean pic. And then we want the button to take the picture, so we'll drop this in place, We'll just call it take picture, that's fine. And then we really don't want this to show up, that picture, unless they said answer to that. So I can just click on that box or the not clean container that I put in place, go to a rule and say that it's rule-based, click at it, and just navigate to the is this clean question. And if we say no, then we want that rule to be invoked, right? And so that quickly we've kind of built our application with native integration to the camera, with logic, and we're ready to publish that out. So let's go ahead and publish. And again, I'm building this in real time, actually on a server. So we're going to push this out. We're just going to push the HTML version. We don't want the PDF version of it. Just going to push this to our demo server. And here you'll see it actually pop up a different window. This is actually where it could be. It doesn't have to be. It could be a transition in roles. So this could be an IT person who's having control of how this is going to be. And so we'll drop this into an organization. We know we want this to be in our FieldWorker application, and we can just call it webinar FW, which is what we called it. And we'll go ahead and import that in. That basically takes all the assets and all the logic that we built as a Composer form developer and drops it in place. Now here you can see I've got form promotions, so testing, emails to the testers, manage deployment schedules, production dates, all that's kind of built into Transaction Manager. Everything you're going to need to manage it. Now we're going to cheat it. We're going to take it past all that, assume it's ready to go production. We're going to take it out of test mode. And then the other thing that we want to do is basically give it group access, right? Who has access to this one? And we're going to grab that webinar group that we created for that particular user and really give it to them. That's really the only person that we want to have access to that form. And so really at that point, we've created the form, we've deployed it, we've made it active, we've set it for that particular user. And so if we come in and actually synchronize our device, there it is. You see it pop right there. So there's our webinar form that we just did. And now if we open that guy up and click on open, what we'll see is the form that we designed. And so you see that laid out with the navigation. Now we didn't put a lot of fields on it, but we can see, I could put a name, address. As I'm going through the inspection, you can see is the area clean. I say no, it's not clean. And we see the take picture button comes up. And so if I click that, we're integrating into the deal. I'll take a picture of my not clean desk. Put that back in place. And then say, yep, that's what I want to use. And so now we've kind of stored that picture in place, and we could actually come in, sign, and submit. So real quickly and easily we could go in, create the integrations we want. If we came back over here and actually hit submit, we would see no further changes. We'd actually be able to submit. That's submitting it, all that data, so the XML data that we created, the actual PDF flattened version of that form, everything is being sent to Transaction Manager. Transaction Manager is now going to determine where should it go, what workflow does it deliver, what email does it send, does it assign another form to somebody else, does someone need to approve it. All those kind of rules are defined into it and handled. And again, that doesn't matter if it's coming from FieldWorker or from a web self-service portal or a web page. All right, so we saw real quickly how we can build those applications. So really, and Rod kind of hinted on this, you can build those quickly, even if you don't build all the back-end integrations to start with, but just get it off paper and get it onto a device. And even if you don't have the tablets in place, you can still design to make that work. And I'm going to kind of just show, this is just, that's not it, that's my PowerPoint. I want to just pull this over. This is just kind of highlight. So here's a portal, and you can see it's built for, a web page, right? So this is me on a website. But if we simulate going down in size, you'll see it start being very responsive. Even down to, once I go past that threshold, it now hides the menu under a menu button and stacks the different pieces. And that's really going to allow me to go all the way down to that phone factor, right? So that's what we mean by responsive design once, have it work anywhere you go. And if you happen to be in the desktop world today, it's going to work just fine. And our desktop client allows that person to take the laptop out into the field and be completely disconnected and still work with it. So they can still synchronize up in the morning, take the laptop off, and go to work. So that's what we kind of mean by that. So if we kind of reflect on what we talked about there, the top reasons that I think why Avoka Transact Mobile FieldWorker really makes sense is the time to market, right? We saw, granted, we didn't put a lot of fields into that, but we still created an application that was used out in the field with camera integration. GPS would have been just as easy. We can do those really quick and keep the business close to that. So time to market is just huge. And then we're tearing down the risk, right? Instead of starting with this big development project and having to manage it, we're falling inside of using this mobile platform to build this. And again, you got to keep in mind, it's more than just the mobile platform. It's the whole transaction. So it manages everything around the transaction as well as your web interactions as well. Are all managed, and that's really reducing our risk and cost. We talked a little bit about the business agility, having the business closer to it and not having to say, here's what I want to have, and then somebody in IT or a contractor try and figure it out and work together to try and build an application that takes a long time. You get the business closer to it, and the business can be agile to as factors change, as new opportunities arise, or as new risks arise out in the field. If you see certain things, you can write rules against it, ask new questions so you can learn more about and be more intelligent in the field. It's a constant improvement, and it allows you to be that way, continuous improvement. And then obviously it'll work on any device, both bigger footprints, small footprints, Android, Windows, iOS, so all that. And then the consistency of the developed applications. You'd be amazed at how many organizations are going out and building these mobile type applications, and they're contracting different people, both internal, external, and the look and feel comes out to be totally different, and they're recreating the wheel for each one of those. And by taking a platform like Avoka Transact and taking advantage of all the things that are built in to handle the complexities around attachments and the integration points and business rules and logic around that, and leveraging the platform along with the templates that you're going to provide your builders, you can now control your brand as well as the type of functionality, right? And so you're not recreating signature, you're not recreating attachments, and all your look and feels are going to be approved. The color schemes, the logos, the menu structures, all that can be approved and then given out to the different people in the field. And there's not saying you have to have one. You could still have multiple looks and feels, but it keeps you from having people going completely off on tangents. So it really gives a consistent look and feel of the applications and a consistent brand for your organization and your users, right? It just makes it easier for your actual customers and people accessing your forms via website, or your field workers, whoever they may be, contractors, employees. It just makes it nice and keeps it nice and clean for them. And then if we kind of talk about some of the things, I ran through numerous examples and showed different forms. These are just some of the responses that we got as we've done case studies with our customers. The resounding thing we hear from customers is we got results in weeks, not months and years, right? We were able to make a change in a matter of a couple of days to get it completely approved and through, where before, we even heard from some people before, just to get a change done on a paper form could take months, and so now they're reaching that business agility they really want. The immediate prioritization and risk issues opportunities is really specific to the form that you're putting in place. So we work with companies who are in the pharmaceutical area where their sales reps, if they uncover something out in the field that is abnormal, they can capture that immediately and it gets reported up immediately, reducing risk and actually reducing exposure, monetary exposure to the company. And then in the sales world, you can open up all kinds of opportunities as you're out in the field, whether it's a field worker doing service, they might open up new opportunities and let the sales team know, or the sales team could open cross sales. There's all kinds of things that can happen in that, and that's where a lot of our customers are seeing tons of revenue and tons of savings. And that's beyond the savings that Rob talked about Rod mentioned that it just getting it from paper to electronic is savings, but you can get a lot just from what you're putting into the type of transaction it is. Good user adoption, they like not having the paper form, reduced training, it's intuitive, costs and delays of processing that is done, right? And that's a big factor for our customers. And then the form errors eliminated. This is really where you can take that form to the next level and put that business logic into it, put the rules into it to make sure that what you're getting in is clean. There's no more back and forth. Oh, I need you to fill this out differently. This is wrong. This is done. You filled this section out, but you should have done this section. All that can be baked into it and make it, intuitive, kind of like that TurboTax type metaphor there. So that's a big one we hear a lot too. And then the pre-population of forms reduces the data entry barrier. So for the users, they don't have to key things in because they can get things assigned to them and pre-population. And if they're even in a connected mode, you can have these forms talking to web services in the back end where it can be, real-time pulling data back and forth as well. And then the other thing that we hear a lot is it allowed the organization's development staff to take and own this and be able to do it and not rely on outside contractors, because really it reduces so much of the burden and takes so much of the code level away that you just don't have to do it. It's just, it's just not a huge project anymore. And so it's allowing the organizations to be more self-sufficient and get things done. So with that, we can turn it over to questions and answers. Thanks for everybody for letting me do that.
Thanks, Jeff. That was terrific. I'm just trying to get our questions squared away. One question that we had was, are the forms bidirectional, so that when if you submit a form, can it return a receipt number?
Yeah, so you can. So in that history aspect, you could have, and by default, it does return receipt. Now, keep in mind, if I'm offline and hit submit, I am doing nothing more than storing it in an encrypted database while I'm there, and it won't actually get the receipt until I come back in line and submit it to them.
Well, that's the next question, which is how and when does synchronization occur when you're offline and then come back online?
So you can set the synchronization to be automatic, or you can turn it off and then be able to just synchronize. If I tap the little green button that was there, that'll start a synchronization. So you can control it when you want, or you can leave it as auto sync, and it'll do it every time you hit a submit or every time you bring the app back up.
Next question. And so did we answer the receipt number question, the bidirectional one? Because I sort of vectored you off into, okay.
I think so.
And you mentioned that there are benefits even if you don't integrate into back-end systems. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, so if you really think about the forms, and this really goes for forms in general, just taking forms from paper to a digital experience, a digital transaction, even if you don't handle the back-end integration, the rules that you're going to embed into that form are going to make it zero errors, easier to adopt, more intuitive to use, better customer satisfaction for the person filling that form in, and if you don't do any integration, it actually makes it very quick and easy to do, so you don't have full straight-through processing. Your back-end process is still the same as it is today, but you've still got a huge enhancement on customer satisfaction, reduced error rates, reduced cycle times, the whole piece.
And higher data quality.
Higher data quality, exactly. One other thing, you mentioned the bidirectional term, and it just had me thinking. So I've had this question a lot as I show the FieldWorker application. Is people ask, can I design the form to look like I want it to look, or does every question I put or every field I put take up the whole row space? And I guess there's some tools out there that people have looked at that are fairly limiting. Hopefully you got a sense on our applications as I went through that they can look like whatever you want. Now they're still controlled by you can set it to be responsive. So you can say, I want these three fields to go side by side, but as the piece rolls down, what happens to those? Do they go underneath, right? Do they disappear? You can change whatever you want them to be. So I just wanted to point out that you can build those forms to look like whatever you want as well.
So our question on back-end integration led to another question. So do you provide back-end integration through professional services?
Yeah, absolutely. So tool itself, so Transaction Manager, and again, when we're talking Transaction Manager, it really doesn't matter if it's FieldWorker or if it's my self-service portal or an internal web page or whatever. Everything's still submitting back to Transaction Manager. Inside of there, you define delivery services. There's delivery services that are already defined into the application, but if you've got something custom to go to your workflow engine or something like that, you just build that. You build it once and you're kind of done. So you build that plumbing the one time and then you just reuse it over and over again.
Okay, and next question is, can the data field be set to take a geolocation when data is captured instead of having a locate button?
Yeah, absolutely. And and that's normally how you would do it, right? So normally you wouldn't have a locate button and make the person manually do it. You might, I don't know, it depends on but a lot of times you want it to be, as they're filling in the field. So maybe it's even as they fill in this section or this particular field, an action kicks the geolocation function and stores it, and it's just hidden, right? You don't necessarily have to even just expose it to the user. The family child services, and we talked about, that's a really sensitive one. They want to make sure those field workers are at the location that child is at. They don't want them sitting at a local McDonald's and filling out the form, right? So that one is very important, and it is embedded into the form, and it happens automatically.
And that led to, do the branching rules work in a disconnected mode?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let me caveat that. So if you build something that is using a dynamic web service to go look up, then obviously it's going to need connectivity. But everything we saw, like if they answered yes here and no here, and you can build as many combinations of that logic you want, that all works in a completely disconnected mode.
Is HTML superior over PDF for data capture, and if so, why?
Well, absolutely, it's superior. I mean, PDF is we're all lovers of PDF here. We've been doing it for years, but it's a little bit antiquated. It certainly doesn't work on the mobile devices, and there's so much more you can do with the HTML5, and it's lighter weight and it's faster. So there's just a lot of enhancements to what it is. Now, that doesn't mean that PDF still doesn't have a place, right? So as I come out of doing something with one of these transactions, I'm going to create a flattened PDF for my document record, so I can store that in my record management system, or I can route that to a workflow engine. So there's still a spot for PDF to be used. It's just not going to be for your data collection, and it's not going to be out there on your mobile device. That's too heavy. Still there, Rod?
Yeah, sorry, I was talking into my microphone mute. The pictures are coming in so fast. I don't know if we're going to get to the pricing discussion, Bill. If not, you can send either me or Jake email. I want to keep answering the product questions. But we have transaction pricing, what they mean, and we have cloud and premise implementation. So transaction pricing means that you can get started for a low cost, and then you pay on what you use. So you could have as many test and deployment servers as you need, and we charge you on how you actually use that system. So it's a more in-depth conversation. We'd be happy to get into that with you. Can a form be dynamically created by a Java application?
I mean, I guess anything. It's not built into the application that way. That's not what it is. I mean, I showed you Composer, and the benefit there is it's a graphical tool that makes sense and allows the person to dictate that logic in there, as opposed to trying to build an application that would do all this. We've kind of already built you the application that helps you lay it out and define those rules without having to do any kind of programming. So I'm not sure exactly why you'd want to do that, but it's not there right now by design.
If fields are bound to XML, does the schema get embedded into the form a la Adobe Designer, or does the schema remain at the server and implement data binding on syncing the data?
So you definitely have the ability even in Composer, you can go in and set the, import your schema or your XML structure and do the mapping. Very similar. It sounds like someone's familiar with the Lifecycle Designer, which creates the PDF. So very similar to that same concept. You're just going to go in and do it, and that's going to make the binding to it. Now, one of the artifacts coming out of Transaction Manager is going to be that XML payload that was defined by that schema, right? And that's just going to be the XML data itself and ready to be dispersed to whatever. So you're going to have that PDF asset of the full flattened, all the attachments that were put in place, the payment information, the XML data payload, who logged in, did they come from a field worker or a website or a portal. All that information is captured by Transaction Manager and then acted on accordingly and delivered to your back end.
Terrific. Last question. Can the picture taken be tagged with specific names?
Yeah, and so when I was doing that in the form, you actually set in that what the picture was going to be, but if I just go in and so you kind of tag it, I know that was the child's picture, so I tag it properly. If I go in and actually click the attach button, you're going to have a drop-down list that you define for this particular form of all the different types that it is, right? Mm-hmm. So actually, and I didn't go to it, but on that energy audit one, when if I would have attached another picture, it would have come up and said, is this a hot water heater? Is this a refrigerator? Is this an oven? Is it a roof? It had all the different type pictures that I wanted or other. And so that gives you the classification you want for those. You can, then drop it into the imaging system. A lot of times what we see people do too is take that receipt, so the final form, the receipt with the signatures on it, attach all the pictures into it. They may even create a portfolio out of it. And so that's the PDF asset that they drop in place, right? But it definitely does have that tagging capability and description and title.
We got one more question related to the Java application again. Can it modify a form created by Composer before giving it to a user? So Dave, are you after pre-population, the data itself, or did you want to change the structure of the form? You'll have to answer me into the question box. If the answer is you want to feed information, both. Well, feeding information, yes, absolutely you can do that. Changing the structure, I don't think we're set up to do that today, although this is a server product. We could get into a deeper discussion with you and see whether or not that's something that we could do. Right? Yeah,
we could look at it. But as far as, so that did highlight when you talk about the data coming in, Transaction Manager has a whole host of things that are built for, here's a pre-pop, I'm going to go run this query and go get information to pre-pop as it's rendered or as it's assigned, or even as they're doing things like payment. Okay, here's the custom, payment script that happens. Here's the custom, so it all works out of the box, but it's all got extension capabilities as well, right? Mm-hmm. And so some of what you might be asking might be there, and you might be able to get where you want. But we're not necessarily trying to change, as Rod said, change the structure of the form on the fly. You would build that into the form itself and drive the data that you're injecting into it would change the structure, right? So I can have all kinds of sections, and then as you inject data into it, the data you injected fires business rules that says, okay, now I don't show these sections, or I do show these two sections, or so you can make a form pretty dynamic just by the data you're injecting into it.
All right, let's wrap it up there. It's 3:04. We've gone over a little bit. I want to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. Send us an email. Let us know what you think. I'm rhodgman@avoka.com. Love to hear from you. And that's it. Let's wrap it up. Thank you very much, and we'll send out some emails on our future webinars coming up shortly.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.